do the other marathons here,
Okay.
they're actually already selling, pre-selling Deadpool tickets
Well,
in
Deadpool's
some.
supposed to be a week or two from now, right?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, compared to Black Panther, I was waiting like I actually forgot if Avengers was this month. I was so sure it was next month until I see uh Avengers movie marathon because I was gonna buy my mom and I a Black Panther tickets, and I'm like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. I'm like, I thought this month was Deadpool and next month was Avengers, but
Well,
apparently,
it's very confusing, yeah.
yeah, I'm like, shit, it's the other way around then. This month is Avengers and next month is Deadpool. Ooh. I mean, I'm definitely gonna see if I can see the midnight showing of Deadpool because why not? Although I don't think any of the theaters will make that big of a deal for it because Avengers, ooh, that was a huge deal around here. Special tickets. There's a fucking ton of merchandise everywhere. Uh, T-shirts, stuff. I mean, okay. Marvel movies are pretty big here. Tokusatsu is pretty big here. Anime is pretty big here, and Star Wars is pretty big here. We have a goddamn, we have a goddamn a Jedi Saber Training Academy that they held an event last month.
If they have that at Disney too.
Yeah, but this was organized by people itself. This is not related to Disney.
Well, yeah. There are a lot of Jedi cosplay, Jedi groups, Jedi. It's probably Jedi religion people too.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the Jedi religion people here yet,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah.
maybe they're in.
It's pretty. It'd be pretty surprising over there, yeah, compared to like,
I mean,
yeah.
like say, if it was England, which I know that's an actual, you can actually go to England and register yourself as Jedi, as your religion, which
Yeah.
makes which actually makes that one commercial about lamb being a universal meat makes sense when they have the one person dressed like a Jedi there. Huh. Hmm. I'm also making sure that the place I am definitely gonna see if I can get they're definitely recording the stuff for May. We're having a comic day, and we're doing a something called Power Rangers Academy
Yeah.
on Saturday and on Sunday, and somebody's recording that, and I'm part of it. I'm not telling until I have my costume, which is today, where I'm being outfitted for it. But yeah,
Okay, I got the
it's
audio to work. Apparently I just had to like increase the volume because like I increased the volume,
oh
I didn't look it showed up, but when I increased the volume a lot more, it showed up a lot better. Apparently
oh
that's a thing.
oh. So it's just sometimes it's just like
It doesn't make
uh
any sense, but I figured it out.
yeah, it's YouTube, so I think you can just say it's YouTube. YouTube is weird,
Oh yeah,
pretty much.
everybody. No, no, it's actually OBS. I think. Yeah, I don't think it's YouTube.
Oh, then, but whatever, I suppose.
Yeah, so you can start off by saying how who you are and how you ended up watching the Avengers of Infinity War. I don't think I changed what the name of the podcast is. Shoot, I forgot something.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
can change that now.
right. So, hi. My name is Catherine. I go by Catherine or Angie, and uh, I went to see the Avengers marathon yesterday. I accidentally mixed up the day. I thought very sure was Avengers was in May and Deadpool was this month.
Well,
But thankfully, yeah.
well, yeah, it wasn't May was the thing. They changed it like a month or two ago, I think,
Yes,
and
I
then like
did
the
look it
whole
up and I
international thing.
realized,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, I'm in for those of I should also mention I'm international. I'm not in the US, but they still were doing the Avenger Marathon, which consisted of the first two Avenger movies and Infinity Wars. I also went to see it with my mom, who has seen Avengers many times, has never seen Ultron, and has very little idea of what's going on in Infinity Wars. But suffice to say, she really, really enjoyed Infinity Wars
That's
Part One.
really cool because like that covers like about everybody almost every demographic.
Yes, my mother is also one of the people who enjoys more. I wouldn't say that she enjoys movies, but she definitely does enjoy action movies.
Okay.
And I will say this: one of the most enjoyable things is because it was a subtitle film, not a dubbed film.
Oh, that's interesting.
That yes, uh, just in case, over here you can either watch the film in either subs or dubs. Both are actually very good. I've seen movies where it's subtitled and then dubbed. I a lot of people prefer the subtitles over the original ones. Mostly, I think because they some of them want to learn English better.
Okay.
Others is because maybe they understand English but can't speak it, so they prefer, and sometimes they think hearing the English audio, they can get all the nuances compared to the Spanish audio. Because I did see like a couple of like small things. Not, I won't say translation errors because they're not errors, but it
There's
doesn't give
localized.
the same. Yeah, it's localized, but it doesn't give you the same feel as when you if you were hearing it translated into Spanish, saying um, one particular thing, saying like during a particular scene, I understand, family. It's weird, and again, in Spanish, it was like, family. You know what it's like. So it's like kind of like trying to get the sentiment that would that people here would understand better than say that would be understood here than what would be understood in say the US.
So yeah, it's like
And
English. I mean, Japanese dub to English dub, except English dub is the Japanese dub in this case.
yes, yes. So yeah, but another nice thing is like there like probably 90% of the people in the marathon, they were most likely very like people who have followed the movies or hardcore fans of the general Marvel movie. And so it was definitely an interesting dynamic to see because I've seen plenty of midnight showings of comic book movies, specifically Marvel movies, with enthusiastic fans and the normal viewing public. I will say the normal viewing public, even here, are very enthusiastic when it comes to a new film. Um, Again, it could be because I live in New York and we're slightly more cynical, so
Exactly. Yeah.
it could be the cynicism of being a New Yorker, so or that. But I will say, a lot of people seem to enjoy it, even if they weren't fans.
Right. It would be pretty funny
So,
if you started mentioning like Michael Bendis and stuff.
well, I did overhear a couple of. I will say this. I during a particular scene, which will be covered later on,
Right.
I heard a guy go like, "What the?" And well, loosely translated like, "No, no, no, what the fuck? This asshole. What's this asshole doing here? What the fuck? What the fuck?" Which again I found particularly funny, and the the gasp, the resounding gasp at
I'm sure there's gonna
the
be a lot of commercials like that. Like everybody's like staring off into the screen and stuff. Like everyone's
yeah,
very tense. Yeah.
yeah, like the resounding gasp in the theater when everybody saw the actual final credits and the cheers I've heard,
Oh, so there's
the
some really
cheer.
awesome
Yes, and there's only one, and you could actually hear like when they thought there was going to be the first credit scene, the resounding ah of not being of there not being more than one, but people were like literally on the edge of their seats when they were waiting there. You could hear people say, "Oh, come on, move faster," or some people just like literally just staring at the screen in like anticipation. It's like they they were waiting. They were waiting to find out, especially the way it ended. Yeah, everybody really wanted to know what the after credit scene, if only. Well, this will be covered when we actually start talking about the movie.
It's very interesting because this is like 10 years after Iron Man almost.
This is yes, it's part one, and it. I will say this much: some of the characters, they did very well on like fleshing out some of the more characters, giving more dynamic scenes in between the characters, especially the Hulk. He,
Interesting. Yeah, you
yeah,
start with that. Yeah.
uh, yeah, like Mark Ruffalo. I will have to say Mark Ruffalo's performance I really enjoyed. He had a lot of nice little scenes. He especially did very well in articulating how terrifying Thanos really is, even though the other characters tend to be like, oh yeah, he's bad. But at least the Avengers who haven't met him,
The
not,
trailers, the trailers do make him look
yeah,
very scary, like this very unstoppable force. Yeah.
yes. And I will say this: when I actually watched it, he is actually a lot more terrifying in a more visceral way than the trailers.
Hmm.
Because I think it's because he's more, in an odd way, a realistic villain. But what he's doing, his end goal, is terrifying. Not because he's evil and everything. Because I'm gonna spoil this. It's not that he wants to rule the world per se. It's just that he wants the world to be at peace, even if it means destroying half the population so everybody can be happy even under him. And so that is a lot more terrifying. And the worst part is you actually see that he actually does have feelings and he does care. But even despite of that, despite knowing the great loss of conquering, killing thousands, complete genocide of a people, it's much more terrifying because it's almost realistic in a way. So I will definitely say it was very terrifying, especially that he had very little trouble in killing children. So even more.
Wow. Oh crap. So
Yeah,
that seems very
so
Winter Soldier Civil Warish, and at the same time, what's the other thing? I see a little bit of
very
Ultron in
a little bit of
Thanos,
Ultron.
except
Yeah,
maybe
I
done
mean,
a little bit better, and
well, I
maybe a little bit Black Panther too. Also, yeah.
yes, I think if you were like, I really will say this. I've seen the other movies. Comparing Loki, he's less of like he's more of a like a show off villain, like that you would expect more in a Saturday morning cartoon,
Right.
like the more goofier cartoons.
Yeah.
Um, Ultron would be more something like for a little more darker, for something like a maybe say something along the lines of a cartoon aimed for slightly older audiences, where he's a little bit more dark, a little more creepy, a little more sinister. Uh, but Thanos would be more like something you would see in a superhero TV show with live action people over, say, a Saturday morning cartoon, or maybe if you want to go for a cartoon, say a more serious sort of series. So Thanos is like a top tier villain.
Right.
He uh, he and the previous villains, like the previous two villains, like say Eric Killmonger, and them are a little more terrifying because, at, in some respects, you see the logic what that they're coming from. And if you didn't know any better or were too young to understand, their logic would be completely sound. And I'm sure, and the more terrifying is that his children, so to speak, believe in Thanos is rhetoric. They want to please him. They want this world that he wants. So yeah, yeah.
Um,
It, it could be me overanalyzing, but that's what I got because his um his followers, save from Gamora and Nebula, they do best to please him, and they do men like any civilization that's destroyed are literally called the children of Thanos, even though after they're killed they're the children of Thanos. You will have the glory of becoming the children of Thanos even in your death, or you've all become the children of Thanos and feel glory for have to died for him.
do you think it was
And
too
these are
close
just,
to like Star Wars in that respect, or
well, not in that respect. As a person who's actually seen most of the Star Wars movie, it's less like that. Most of them are like they're brainwashed into, they don't have the full scope of what's happening because even if you say both of them, most of the, say for example, much like the stormtroopers, they don't know what actually happened before Order 66 or how the Jedi or all that thing that happened or how what the Emperor is doing. It's more like fanaticism and wanting for what they think is right. And I guess in the newer ones, it's like most of them are just under Snoke's command. And he's maniacal, but he doesn't really, neither of them really care about their people's well being.
right?
They don't really. Meanwhile, Thanos' goal is to make sure, in his own twisted way, that the people he conquers are cared for. Because there's a particular scene in where Gamora tells him, "You did the complete genocide of my people," and then he answers his back, but now he answers back that now the children are no longer starving. They have full bellies and only happiness. Her planet, after the previous genocide, is a utopia. But she says, but it's at a price of all the other people who died before her. And he did mention that sometimes great sacrifice is needed for this. And I think that's more terrifying because, again, Snoke doesn't really care. He just wants
Yeah,
the
I
world to
love
be under
Snoke. Yeah,
his control.
yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with Palpatine.
Well, Kylo Ren I found
And
very interesting with the let everything get destroyed, and maybe there was some of
yeah,
like that in Thanos probably.
yeah. I mean, they did seem to try to make him. I will say this: all of Marvel's previous villains and other movies have been a little more one note, more or less. It's gotten better with Ragnarok, which was more. He was less of a villain and more like, just power hungry, crazy, somebody that you would actually see in the real world, who cares more about money and his own status than Eric Killmonger, with wanting freedom for his people, even if that means destroying everybody else and only his people doing it. And then Thanos, who goes genocide to make, but genociding half the population for the other half to live happily. It's an increasing scale of evil and better written character. They really, and Josh Brolin, the actor who did Thanos, really sold it really well. Really, I mean, yes, sometimes his outfit is a little, very
It was very
ordinary, but
purple.
that
Yeah,
doesn't. It's very purple and sort of like looks like he's just been to a gym. But I think it really sells it more because
even without the whole majestic outfit that you're supposedly he's in the comics. It makes him, I wouldn't say more human, but it means he feels it's like more, I think, militaristic and convenient to have something that he can easily move and easily fight in. So yeah, there's that definitely.
How did they pull off that big plot point and big thing, yet have like I hear there's a lot of action in the film. Like how's that balance?
Oh, actually, you know what? One of the biggest things is like they did have a lot of action. Here's the thing. They had a lot of character driven scenes and a lot of, but most of the character driven scenes didn't directly go into the action scenes. Like, for example, I'll go with, ah, with Doctor Strange. With this is near the beginning of the movie. Actually, let me start off with a better point. This is after the first part of the movie, which I'll discuss, which has to do with Loki and Thor and how um,
Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston is a liar,
Yep.
as a as somebody in the theater screamed "liar" in Spanish,
Isn't
which I
that like a
found
meme
both.
in a movie or something? Someone yells liar like Star Wars or something like Kylo Ren. I forget who.
Yeah, I think it's a meme somewhere, but somebody there is I somebody
Oh,
did in my theater
it's Adam
scream "liar."
Skywalker in the prequels, like in
Yeah,
X-Men, I
it's
think. Yeah.
yeah, but somebody did scream "liar," and I'm pretty sure I heard a couple of sobs or two because I was all crying during that particular scene.
Okay.
But we'll touch on the Loki Thanos scene in a minute. But there, maybe I missed it. For all those people who are hoping for the no shit Sherlock, for somebody for either Tony Stark or Benedict Cumberbatch to say to each other, I'm sorry, sorry, sorry.
I cut out. Hopefully the call didn't disconnect. Are you still there?
But I will say this: they actually balanced it well. There were like purely fighting scenes. There were Stephen Strange Jurassic Park, and that actually rhymed. Forgive me. And while they're talking inside the sanctorum, uh, they've been conversing about how terrible because Bruce makes his appearance. I will say this: Bruce, when he finally sees Tony, it's a very small but heartfelt moment. Tony, the look on Tony's face, and I will give this to his acting. Oh, I will give this to Robert Downey Jr.'s acting. It's like when Tony sees Bruce again after he's been missing all this time. There's just this look of surprise, and when they embrace, it's very heartfelt. It's very sweet. But then, of course, it goes back to immediately into the talk of how Thanos truly is, and Bruce seems to try and explain to Tony how terrible he truly is, but it seems that Tony doesn't understand or maybe doesn't know the full scope per se. Doctor Strange does seem to get it, but from there, the scene, it's you sort of know when the battle is going to come. For the first scene, you can see wind coming in from the first two spaceships, and that's when the battle starts. But the good thing about the fighting in the scenes, they managed to mesh it well without being too long or too overly drawn out. There's the scene, there's the bigger scenes are actually near like the latter half. They have like three big three semi-important fight scenes in the future, and then near the end is where most of the bigger fight scenes take a lot more space and time, where where it should be nearing the climax. Though I will say they managed they oh but okay. Since this is a good thing that came out during being part of a screening where people are fans of the movie. The moment that the fight starts, people are already clapping when Doctor Strange starts pulling using his magic to deflect and stuff. But then the moment comes where Tony suits up in his brand new suit, instant cheering and whooping once the suit melds onto him, and whatever three big prong things that help shoot his energy come out, those get huge. Those got huge cheers, along with the later appearance of Spider-Man a couple of minutes later during that particular scene.
Okay, so it was like the Iron Man's, the Iron Spider suit, or should you?
It though well, the Iron Spider suit actually came a little later. Um, it's just his normal Spider-Man outfit
Okay.
that you actually see that he puts on while escaping the bus, while he tells his friend to make a distraction, but his friend already is like, "There's an alien attack. We're all gonna die," or something along
So the
those lines.
Spider-Man teenagers show up in the film.
One of them, the
Okay.
chubbier guy.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
funny.
I can't
That's pretty
remember.
cool. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, he tells him to make a scene, to distract, but I think he's less trying to distract than actually reacting to a giant fucking spaceship coming, giant donut looking spaceship coming out of the sky. So, you know, it's more or less of a distraction and more of an honest reaction that happened to double as a distraction.
Right.
Which and but yes, any of the scenes that Spider-Man was in, they were pretty funny. I did like he made a lot of pop cultural references, but at one point of the film, Tony told him to shut up and stop making pop cultural references, mostly because he's in. I guess it's like a good nod to the fans how some people are a little tired of of random pop
Spider-Man.
culture
Yeah.
references. Yeah, specifically when Spider-Man makes them. It
Yeah.
was actually a little funny bit where Peter and the other Peter Star Lord and Peter Parker,
All right. Peter
they
Quill.
talk
Yeah.
about yeah Peter Quill and Parker.
Peter
Yeah,
Avengers.
they were talking. Yeah, Peter Avengers and uh, Peter Quill starts talking about Footloose, and is this still the greatest film ever made? And Peter just fires back, "No, it never was." And you can see how disappointed Peter is. It's like this young kid just
Okay,
Peter
Peter Quill.
Parker. Peter Quill was so disappointed at that moment because please remember this he was taken as a very young child when Footloose was a big movie back then, only to find out
That's pretty cool.
a decade and a half later that it didn't even become the greatest film. Is it a cult classic? Yes. Is it super popular like other films? No.
Did they do the same thing with Captain America and films of his era in that scene, or?
Well, no. Actually, here's the funny thing: as even though this is Avengers, not all the Avengers got um, were there at all at the same time. Particularly, neither did um, particularly the three that didn't get to interact with many Avengers is uh, with the other half. Peter and like the Guardians of the Galaxy get to interact with Thor, Tony, uh, Peter Parker, and Doctor Strange. But the Guardians don't get to meet the other half of the Avengers, like say Cap, Bruce, etc., etc., etc. They don't get to meet those half. It's half one half of the Avengers have one end of the galaxy, and the other half in the other half in another half. Even then, Thor sort of goes off on his own for a little while, mostly to beat Thanos. Keep trying to say Thanos. I don't know why. Uh,
I don't know if it's an incorrect pronunciation or not. Is it incorrect to say Thanos?
I mean, I guess you could say. I guess it's like potato, potato.
It is sort of right. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't.
So
Yeah.
they say Thanos.
Okay.
Well, just forgive me in case I switch in between Thanos and Thanos. It's the same thing,
The inconsistencies.
same villain.
Is right.
Inconsistency,
Is right.
my own inconsistency.
Yeah.
But it does concentrate on sometimes two set of Avengers, and for a very brief time, three. But mostly it's been split up between two sets. The ones who are on Earth, and the other half who are in space,
Okay.
which mostly is Guardians of the Galaxy, Tony, Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange was actually taken initially. So he is in space with Tony Stark and Peter Parker, and that's where he gets the spider suit, because he's trying to obey Tony by getting Stefan, and he pulls out Order 17A. Yes, it's called 17A specifically, where he gets the metallic spider suit. So that's where it got. He only gets it because he was gonna um like losing oxygen in the atmosphere because he was traveling into outer space. Also, he said the interior smelled like new car. I'm not sure what that says about Peter or Tony.
Peter Quill, right?
Yeah, Peter says, Mr. Stark, it smells like a new car.
Oh.
He actually said that in the movie, and I found that both hilarious, and later on I found it a little weird. Because it's like, is it Peter Parker's senses, or did Tony actually put in a new car smell inside the suit? Inside a metallic suit. And how did he accomplish that?
Right.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people who did the. Another person who actually did a lot of heavy lifting when it came to this movie would also be Thor, Chris Hemsworth.
Possibly.
Uh, yeah.
Because he goes straight
So
into Thanos, right?
yeah, he goes because
He
the
made the suit,
opening,
right?
yeah, the opening scene. I will tell you, the opening scene when the credits are just like the Marvel logos playing. The first thing you hear is Loki putting out a distress signal for the ship. And it's not even a distress signal, it's more of like it, and as it continues on, it's less of a distress and more of a begging. They're saying these are the last of my people, there are children on board, and even after the ship blows up, the distress signal is still there because that's how the Guardians find Thor. But I will say this much: the very like it's the opening of the movie shows that they're not playing around with how dangerous like Thanos is. Like I mentioned before, the opening scene, apart from Loki, it's like you see the interior of the spaceship after it's been shot. It's pure wreckage, bodies on the floor. Almost no one survived, or of the people who were still on the ship, because it was mentioned later on like half his people died. So I'm guessing like the other half somehow it made it to escape pods. Who knows? But there are so many bodies on the floor, and as they slowly pan to Thanos' walking, there's a short like lingering shot of a kid that you see in Ragnarok, but he's there, gone, dead, and then it focuses on Thanos and Loki because the distress
It's
signal is
fragmented.
pre-recorded. Yeah,
Yeah.
that stuff is probably re-recorded. So they're standing down. Thor is down, out of commission. Not completely out of commission, but you could see he's been badly hurt. And so there's a back and forth going on, and then Thanos asks Loki for the cube. Uh, what's its name?
And does
I,
that
I usually
tie into the? Well, first
it
off,
originally ties it ties actually there was a scene in Ragnarok where Loki goes back to retrieve the cube.
right?
Yeah, and yes, there was a reason for that. Um, uh, there's a likely chance that Thanos attacked the ship because of the cube,
Exactly.
but it's not entirely sure that it may have been. It could just be that Thor's ship, he attacked Thor's ship simply because it was there. So considering with Thanos, it could be either or, but there could be a very much chance because he decided to what the cube as Asgard was crumbling. It could be why it led to the ship. But on the other hand, if Loki hadn't gotten the cube, there would have Thor would have likely died. There was a very good scene where Thanos asks Loki for the cube or your brother's life. At first he says, "No, go ahead.
Well, the other thing is that
Kill him."
he could be lying, right? Like maybe he doesn't care
Yeah,
about if Thor dies.
yeah. Yeah, it could be lying. He could be lying. He said he starts off. He doesn't care if Thor dies, so he
And he could be
stops and
tricking Thor into believing that he cares when he really doesn't.
yeah. But here's the thing: as Thanos slowly begins to crush Thor's head, you can actually
Oh
see
wow.
the range of emotions. Yes, he's
Wow.
actually crushing Thor's head because his hand is big enough to crush it, and uh, Tom Hiddleston once again shows his acting range. You can see that he's trying to remain stoic in the face of his brother screaming, and in the end, he cries, "Enough! Enough!" The cube for his life, and he brings out the cube and surrenders, but he will give him the cube for his brother's life. And here's the thing: most people would expect Thanos to be like, "No," and just kill him. No, Thanos does keep his word. I think that's even worse.
Did you ever watch the 1987 Masters of the Universe film?
I did.
Do you remember the scene where Skeletor's like whipping? Well, not him, but like someone's whipping the back of He-Man, and then Skeletor's like
Yeah,
he looks at it, and then he tries to not look at it at the same time.
yeah, I remember that part.
Yeah,
It's similar to that.
yeah,
It's because even despite this, it's like, he said, and then there's this really nice long theme where after he's free, he, uh, Thor mentions that, yeah, once again, Loki is a traitor, and then um, he starts saying that he's going on this long spiel. He is Loki, Prince of Asgard, son of Odin, heir to the Thorn of Jotunheim, blah blah blah. how he swears his undying um, loyalty to Thanos. This is after Thor has been quieted with Thanos' power. He's literally wrapped it up in his own ship, in the debris of his own ship. And like you can see how bad, how betrayed Thor's feel until he sees the well, actually no, sorry. When he gives him the cube, I might be confusing, but actually he did try to make sure Thor was free, and he actually had a he distract. I'm trying to remember whether it's when he was giving him the cube, yeah, or afterwards. But he did try to distract Thanos long enough for Hulk to attack, which he did. So Loki did give enough time for Hulk to battle Thanos, but Thanos was beat Thor in an instant.
I have an idea about like that kind of thing, where
Yeah.
it could be good, but it could be equally as terrible. Like Loki's talking to Thanos, and then Loki's like, no, Thanos is like, I have an army, and then Loki goes, I have a Hulk.
No, no, he actually does say, I said it's like you can't dislike it, yes, but we have a Hulk.
Oh, okay, that's
We
pretty
did,
good.
he did,
Well, that's very
he
good.
does actually,
That's very good.
yeah, he actually, it was a
I'm not
nice
gonna
little
see it,
callback.
but it's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's a nice little callback to the first Avengers, so I like that. And then the Hulk comes in, he battles Thanos, and inevitably loses horribly to him.
That's pretty cool.
And yeah, and now I remember, after everybody is defeated and only Loki is standing,
How did they explain that the
uh,
Hulk gets defeated? Like, does he run out of oxygen? Like, how can you defeat the Hulk? Or does he get tired? Or does he
Thanos
like?
already has two stones in his glove.
Oh, so he uses the stones.
Yes, but he already seems pretty powerful on his own without it. So the help of the stones really did it in. So after everything, what happens is like it's nearing the end. They know they can't do anything. And
I mean, an interesting thing he could do is like he has like the time stone, and then
yeah,
he like
well, he doesn't
he
get the
advances the
time stone.
age of the Hulk
The
to the point
the
where he's not
the
really
Hulk,
Hulk
yeah,
anymore, you know, or something like
that's
that.
true. But the thing is, he only has space and I forgot. It's space, but not time. It's
Okay.
space and something else. He already has a stone with him, and then he takes uh, the cubes that I can't remember. I usually
Tesseract.
know it's the tesseracts. The tesseracts, which is another one he gets from Loki, because he trades it for Thor's life.
Right.
But there is a. I'm still trying. I can't. My mind is confusing it. But after the Hulk is uh is 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 defeated, he knows there's um Edris Elba's character. His name, I usually know his name off the top of my head. The gatekeeper. Um,
The Idris Elba one.
yeah, Idris Elba's character.
I forget his name all the time. I just call him Idris Elba. You know, Idris Elba, the comic
Yeah,
book character.
he he knows because he can see far into the future, past whatever because of his eyes. He looks at him and he calls upon the power of dark magic for one last time. Ah, now I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Uh,
Did he always have that power? I can't remember now off the top of my head.
he probably has, but he doesn't use it because it's dark magic.
Oh, okay, that's why. Okay.
Yeah. So okay, so I'm trying to get the sequence of events right. I know he does
Yeah, I
trick
was
things.
wondering about that. Yeah.
Like right now, it's a little confusing in my head because I know it's happened, but it's like it's the two orders of where it goes. I know like right. It's probably, yes, I know what happened. Uh, so uh, he tries tricking Thanos, and well, okay. So Idris Elba uses his last of his strength to make sure that Bruce is able to escape. So he uses his power to open up the Rainbow Bridge and send them to Earth. Of course, this displeases Thanos, and he goes over there, uses a sword, and murders damn right murders him. And then you can see him screaming. You'll pay Thor is screaming in both anger and rage as Idris Elba's character slowly dies, and that you'll pay for this. And well, yeah, it's very. He suddenly locked up in debris after that.
Do any
Uh, yes.
do any
Do
major
any?
characters die?
Yes. Okay, so I'm coming up on the first death.
Take your time. Take your time. Yeah.
This one is really heart wrenching because uh, he does it not only to try. Loki is the first one to die, and
Right.
he does it to trying to save his brother and trying to kill Thanos. His last words to Thanos is that he won't be able to completely he won't be able to win. And then Thanos takes him by the neck, brings him up, and starts choking the life out of him. Meanwhile, Thor is there watching this monster choke him to death until you hear the sickening crack of him dying, and then he lets Loki fall to the floor, his face half purple. I cried.
Oh, so he has like this
There,
purple thing that like cancels
yeah.
stuff out.
No, no, it's just him of his. Loki died purple faced because he couldn't breathe,
Okay.
less because of his, but a sort of blue purple face. I'm guessing maybe because of his heritage, but he didn't turn outright blue.
Okay.
It could be
That makes
because
sense. Yeah, because if it was Thor, it'd be a little bit trickier. Because like, as a god,
yeah,
you
because
don't know if he breathes oxygen or not.
yeah, because he somehow survived being in space. We
Right.
don't know if how long he was in outer space, but he survived that. But but as soon as Thanos has killed Loki and he orders the destruction of his ship, he lets Thor go, and it's heart wrenching. Thor scrambles over towards Loki's body and cradles him and cries.
Did you think that Thor was a lot more likable in this film than the other films?
Okay, so the first film he was overbearing. In the second
Right.
film, I found him boring. In the third film, I liked him because he was a little more relatable, less stupid jock, and more like,
He's likable, right?
yeah,
And
he's
he's like fun to
likable.
be around.
He's fun to be around. He's joking. He's like what you would think of Thor, like a Thor from the cartoons, where you know he's likable and all those sort of things.
Well, I'll
So
say
yeah,
he was always a different Thor from like every other incarnation.
yeah, he
Like,
was
cause you got
not the
like,
Thor. He's not like the Thors you would think in many of the cartoon incarnations because
right,
they usually make him very likable. Not that Chris Hemsworth isn't likable, but in the other films he seemed more like an untouchable sort of god who was a little more full of himself.
right.
Of course, even in the more he was more humble and everything. But in this one, he seems so very human even in his grief, especially the scenes where he's cradling and crying Loki and just holding him close and cradling him while the ship explodes purple.
Right.
It was just purely heartbreaking. And again, the reaction of people after Loki died, I could hear some people sobbing. I myself was crying.
Did Thor
I
ever have a
heard
moment?
somebody. Yeah, go ahead.
Did Thor ever have a moment like that in the comics before that? Because like I always pictured him as like this, always the same kind of emotion guy. I've never
Maybe
really read the comics otherwise till like modern ones, but
I've read the modern ones, and so you can get them. The old ones I really can't say because I'm not as up to date on the really old ones, so I can't really say. In the more modern ones, he does get a little more emotional, blah blah blah. But I think in this one in particular, from Chris Hemsworth really shows off his um his range just by all that scene of him just cradling Loki close and and just just saying the word Loki,
oh yeah,
and you can literally feel his pain as he cradles his dead brother. But here's the one thing that I found interesting: the they found Thor's body in the wreckage along with the bodies of everybody else, right? And Loki is dead, but but the people, but the distress signal was originally Loki, so but they only found Thor's body. So the thing is, it is called Infinity Wars. Is Loki really dead despite Thanos' killing him?
well yeah, he has that whole Norse god thing. I don't know how much Norse god, but that always had me curious. Yeah,
Yeah, because he
and
did die.
Loki,
Loki
Loki can always
is a
pretend to
mass.
die. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I sort of have to, but like, I
that's the
really
problem with
sit.
Thor one because like it should have been obvious that he pretended.
Yeah, and in Thor 2, he didn't die either.
Yeah.
Uh, in Thor 3, he was there. So, like, again, but I will say this I do love the reaction of the one person calling, because Tom Hiddleston said, "Don't worry, Loki's going to be okay." I think the one person who saw that, the one person who called us said liar, knows that he was lying about the Loki being okay. But then again, maybe Tom Hiddleston knows something we don't. I don't know.
Right. I don't know if he
I
was
don't.
interviewed or whatever.
He was interviewed but a couple of times about Loki's character, blah blah blah, and he made said, "Don't worry." There was an article that he said to assure fans that Loki would be okay. But then again, I don't know. Maybe Tom Hiddleston knows more about Loki's fate than we do. Maybe he's just as confused on what it's supposed to happen. We don't know until we get the after interviews of everything else, after Loki's death, after the whole thing has been out.
Right.
And so yeah, the very first death is, well, technically the gatekeeper Heimdall
Right.
is technically the first death, but
All right.
he's technically not a major character, but he's a minor, but a minor character. So that's the first sort of important death. But the first major character death is Loki.
Yeah, I'm curious about Heimdall too, because like, is he like full Norse god or is he just like a being on Asgard and stuff?
He's actually full Norse god.
Okay.
Like from he actually does appear in the actual Norse mythology if you care to look at it. But he's weird because he had 8 moms.
Okay.
Yeah, again, that's weird.
Yeah.
But like after the ship blows up, they follow the Rainbow Bridge directly with Bruce being sent to
Are
the
you going into
thing,
the next?
Korra.
Are you going into the next death now or?
Yeah, this is like right after that. They go they
Just so you know,
the
it's already 4:05. I don't know you have to go or not.
No, I mean I told them what time they're there. If not, I'll see if I can do it on Saturday because
Okay.
I or somehow or like early Saturdays maybe. I don't know. I'll see what I can do. I sent them a message about that.
Cool.
So I'll just leave here at 4 maybe. And hopefully they'll answer me back soon. But yeah,
It's 4:06 now.
no. Well, for me it's 3.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay, my fault. I got
Yeah,
the
no, no
times mixed
problem.
up. Okay.
Yeah, it's just by an hour. So yeah,
Is it because of the daylight savings time?
yeah. Daylight saving times doesn't exist here.
Oh, okay, that's why I get confused. Okay, good.
But yeah.
Yeah, so you were
So
talking about the
yeah,
Rainbow Bridge and after Loki.
from dies. That's and the ship blows up. It goes directly towards the. It follows the Rainbow Bridge, where it sends Thor to the Sanctum Sanctorum, in Doctor Strange house, and that's where they find. Oh, that's where I think there's an amusing little scene with Doctor Strange and Wong, where they're having a little conversation before Bruce crashes into their stairwell about not accepting money. It's like, oh, and Doctor Strange says, yes, I'll use the just your thoughts and things to get a sub to get a sub. It's like, but I have 200, but at least I have 200 won. He pulls out 200.
Oh
He has
god.
$200. Wong, no, Wong. It's because they're hungry, and the whole thing of they're trying to figure out how to pay to get a sub. And then like when Wong pulls out the 200, he's like, I have $200. Wong. So how much is that? A buck 50? I think the Doctor Strange was gonna. It's like he and then like as they're going down that he would kill for a tuna sub and then bam, the Rainbow Bridge like slams down into them, into the into the Sanctorum, and then you see Bruce like slowly turning from green to back to normal, and from then on, it just goes to the scene with Pepper and Tony. They're
Okay.
having a they're having a conversation about baby, and yes, they're back together, and Tony proposed.
Awesome.
Yeah, so they're back together again, and they're having this conversation about them wanting to have a kid, this and that. And then at the moment, there's this huge thing that appears, and Doctor Strange comes out majestically saying, Tony Stark, I am in need of your help. And that's when it happens, and he they go to the Sanctorum, and from then on in, uh, yeah. So, and then that's where they have the talk about Thanos,
Did you think there was a
and
bit
then
too much Marvel humor in it, or
okay, well, I do think there was a little much of the Marvel humor in it. I will say, if you haven't, I mean, by itself, I suppose you could actually watch it, but but as a pure standalone film, I wouldn't be say it would work as a pure standalone film. I mean, you would at least have to watch one or two of them. I would have to say you at least have to watch the first Avengers to get it,
right?
some of it at the very least. Um, the first and second at the very least to understand this, to understand some of the humor. I mean, you could probably ignore some of the other character movies like Doctor Strange. He's just, you can tell he's just a magician. There's no that I don't think you like the ones that I think that you wouldn't get as like that you would actually probably need to see would be like the bits of the Black Panther, anything having to do with Black Panther, the whole thing with Vision and Wanda. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
We'll get to that when we get to that. And I also had a question
yeah,
about
yes,
our stuff that you might get to later, but I messaged
yeah,
you about it. Um,
yeah.
does that You can tell me if that happens when you get to it, or if it doesn't happen, you can just say it doesn't happen.
Which one?
Um, Peter Quill, Doctor Strange mixtapes.
Okay, I will say this: when they change to the to
Well, they're in space,
the
right? Well,
they're
they're
in
they're in space,
space.
right?
Yeah, they're definitely in space. But here's the thing: there's definitely gonna looks like there's gonna be some sort of Guardians of the Galaxy mixtape because it starts off with with Peter singing one of the oldest songs. I don't remember it, but I definitely was like was dancing along to it. But there's probably gonna be some sort of mixtape at least at one point because there's at least one song. I can't tell though. It's just one song, so maybe.
Okay,
Who knows?
right.
But yeah, that's the thing. But I will say, after the whole thing with the Sanctorum, that as I mentioned earlier, there was a talk between Tony, Wong, and everything. Wong did a very beautiful presentation about the Infinity Stones, the gem, and Thanos. Uh, and that's what happened. There was very good, very mystic like elements. Couldn't see everything because I had to go get some candy for mom, sadly. But I came back. Like they were talking about how Thanos. Bruce was trying to get across how terrible Thanos was, and then they saw this weird something weird happening up top. Like the Sanctorum has a window, and they could see. Actually, no, it was Tony asking, "Does your hair usually do that? Wave in the wind?" And then Stranger Ponds, "Not if I'm actually doing it myself," which implies that yes, Doctor Strange does occasionally use his magic to make his hair look better.
That seems very Doctor Strange-ish.
Yes, that is, isn't it? I found that hilarious, and so many people in the theater found that pretty hilarious too. That Doctor Strange sometimes uses his magic to make himself look make very dramatic entrances. But then again, his first entrance meeting Tony was very dramatic, reaching out, and you could just look at the look on Pepper and Tony's faces, like, what the fuck is happening right here? But yeah, it's from then on they meet one of Thanos's, well, two of Thanos's children, where he starts speaking the rhetoric of be glad you will become sons of Thanos, blah blah blah, this and that. And then that's where the fight scene where Tony unveils his new armor, Spider-Man appears, blah blah blah. But during the end of the scene, he Doctor Strange actually gets captured. And yes, he actually gets captured and knocked out by Ma. I think that's his name, Ma. Something Ma. I don't know.
What does he look like?
Uh, he's this tall, sort of like wrinkly dude.
He's like a
Pale, wrinkly dude.
he's like a child of Thanos, right?
Yeah, he's one of the children of Thanos. He also had this big, huge dude. Uh, but I will say, like that scene between Tony, then later on Spider-Man, and a little bit of Wong was pretty action-packed, well choreographed. Uh, One of the most amusing thing is the hand was cut off, and there's one of Thanos' kids is stuck in some icy dimension one day. I don't know where. So there's that. Um, but like I said, the reason they went into space is because Tony went after Strange because, well, Doctor Strange is holding the time, the Infinity Time Stone, the time, and
Right.
so he's knocked out and he's being um, taken away. Spider-Man follows, and then as they're going up into the atmosphere, Tony activates 17 Protocol 17A, which gives Spider-Man the new suit. where he's able to breathe in space. Tony sends Peter home, telling the program to take him home, but he ends up clinging on to the spaceship and finding a way in. And Tony follows. I guess somehow gets into the ship.
One thing I wonder about that is why doesn't everybody get an Iron Man suit then?
I know, isn't that the thing? I mean, he has like provisions. Like the man is a genius. He made a suit uh for Peter,
Shape?
but
Oh,
I don't
Peter, yeah.
Peter, and he's also made a suit for War Machine. I'm pretty sure he updated Falcon's technology and all
Right,
those
right,
kind of
that's
things.
true,
So
yeah.
I mean, I mean, before the Falcon, stopped communicating, blah blah blah, or maybe they're still communicating.
Right, before Civil War and stuff.
Yeah, I will say this, like, one of the things is like he does admit to Bruce that there's a lot of shit is going down. The Avengers are no more, and how he's gonna have a hard time trying to call Cap because the person who calls Cap is not Tony, it's Bruce.
Right. Would you consider this an Avengers film or just a Marvel Comics in general film?
Mm, I would say it's a little bit of both because it does rely heavily on the knowledge of you seeing past Avengers films,
But is the
past
Avengers
past
entity
past.
like still there?
There's the entity, but it more deals that you have to see other of the Marvel films because they did mention these are some things that they mentioned. Why isn't Hawkeye or Ant Man here? They said that the it was too much for them, so they decided for so both Hawkeye and Ant-Man decided to get house arrest because it was hard on their families.
Oh,
And so that's why Hawkeye and Ant-Man aren't there, but a lot of people are wondering, hmm, there has to be more. There's a reason why Ant-Man isn't there. Maybe we'll find out soon, probably in Ant-Man and Wasp, which is coming out soon. Yeah,
I
pretty
forget
soon.
when, yeah.
But that one's coming out soon. He wasn't there during the whole thing, and I'm
Well,
thinking I'd like to think like during this whole thing is happening, maybe a couple of days before, like during the whole Infinity Wars thing, maybe whatever is happening with Ant-Man as Wasp is happening at the same time.
I think
So
so, yeah. Did you watch the
it's not
trailer for
exactly.
Ant Man and the Wasp?
No,
Okay, I'm
sadly
not gonna say
no,
anything then. I can't say anything.
because
There's
if
a
anybody that
there's a reason
yeah,
for
like
that,
I
yeah.
yeah, like I said, if people don't know, I don't watch any trailers of any
Right.
movies that I want to go see if possible. Mm, Part of it is because spoiler, and part of it in the beginning is because remaining spoiler free. Now it's just habit.
Yeah.
Unless it's Deadpool, because half the time Deadpool's sometimes movie, his like particular movie events don't make sense, and half the time the stuff that's in the movie in the promo isn't actually in the movie, which I think that's what Ryan Reynolds wants.
Hmm.
Yeah, but anyways, back to Marvel. But yeah, they're in space, blah blah blah, and then they have to find after Tony is taken away, and Bruce calls, picks up the flip phone, which I still find really funny that there's a flip phone with Steve's number. He picks up the flip phone, looks up Steve Rogers, and presses the call, and then the scene changes to somewhere in Scotland. There's human vision
Okay.
staring out, saying, like, rubbing his forehead because again, he's seeing visions of Thanos' destruction, blah blah blah, because of the Mind Stone. So,
Oh, right.
and and the reason he's there in Scotland, he's having a rendezvous with Wanda.
Hmm.
like a romantic rendezvous with Wanda.
So they finally did that thing.
Yep. So they did mention that it's been 2 years or a few years. So it's not like it's been like, oh, this is like 6 months after Civil War or anything. It's like they like it's been nearly 2 or 3 years since everything, blah blah blah. So I'm like, okay, okay. So they finally get together, and they're having this very sweet, tender moment where Vision very awkwardly says, "Why don't you stay? I mean, unless you don't want me to stay, unless I'm overstaying my, like very." He's very dorky at that moment. It's like, unless you don't want me, and she does stay, and then it's all very sweet. It's all very romantic, and then Thanos' other children attack.
I wonder if there's like a whole Thanos' children and like Iron Man and Pepper talk about children thing going on there and stuff.
Yeah, because the first time it was like in true romantic moment, bam, Thanos is true, like have children, talk about wedding, boom, Thanos' children. Second one is like uh, Vision, Wanda, romantic get together, stay with me, I will, I love you, bam, Thanos' children cock blocking.
Right. Do you feel like it was a little bit too on the nose that was a reference to the comic books, or do you feel like uh, Vision and Scarlet and sorry, Wanda were organically put together?
Well, I will say this, you actually could sort of see a little bit of it, like in Ultron. I mean, you could see there's an infatuation that starts in Age of Ultron uh after Vision saves Wanda from the debris of Sokovia. You could see that it's building slowly but surely. I think it's because they took it off screen that people can imagine what they long. But I mean,
Yeah, it's very off screen.
yeah, I mean, what they give, like they didn't. You could tell there was maybe a little spark of feeling at that moment, but uh, in Civil War, you could see that they're growing close. Not yet romantic-ish, but he is protective of her. Blah blah blah. But I do like that it's more you could like off screen and they try to make it seem like it's a slow moving thing instead of like outright. Because they did mention that they decided to take a chance after the whole Civil War thing because you only live once, blah blah blah. So it's an interesting thing. I don't know if it like coincides with the comics because I suppose you could see it that way, but it's sweet. It's sweet. I will say that much. And I will I will say this. I thought that the Tony and Pepper one was a little heavy-handed, and I will readily say I don't like, any like sort of romantic things in movies unless they're handled well. And I thought Pepper and Tony's thing with the marriage is like, okay, I mean, it's all right, but I enjoyed Vision and Wanda a lot more because you at least had like moments, slow build up towards that point, and you could imagine it. So I didn't find Wanda and Vision being together like annoying like in some films. It was very sweet. It felt very organic. I think it also has to do with the actors actually meshing well with each other too. So there's that.
I had a question about that, but I don't know if I should ask till the end of the movie. I'm just gonna write it down.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think there's
But
potential for Wanda and Vision in the future, movie wise?
probably, I mean,
I guess maybe it's
there's
something we gotta talk about later. Okay, we can continue.
yes, because it has to do with both of them the fates near the end of the
Right,
movie.
right.
Because I will say this, he in the beginning he does ask Wanda if she could use her powers, to destroy the stone.
Interesting.
It's Yes, he did start it off like if he asked, but she said if there is something, he's been thinking about it. But anyways, but I will say this: the fight between Vision, Wanda, and the two followers of Thanos, the two sons of Thanos, starts off pretty interesting. Sadly, of course, both of them are vastly outnumbered, and just at the exact moment that you can see that because Vision is incapacitated because there's one of the followers uses a weapon that seems to disrupt his robotic ish body. So it makes the fight a lot harder for him, and Wanda does her best, sort of trying to handle two on their own. But at the exact, uh, but there's the exact moment when that you see that Wanda is very much exhausted, and they're going to, and she has Vision. She's like trying to protect Vision from them. A train passes. A train passes behind her, and after the train passes, there's a figure, all in the dark, a man in the darkness, and then he steps into the light, and it's Captain America in full bearded glory right there. The audience broke out in cheers, myself included, because here comes Steve Rogers to save the day.
How would he save the day?
Well, because she was about to be defeated because they were on the point of defeat. Wanda couldn't take any more punishment between two people. She was exhausted. They were just about to take a gem from Vision,
Okay.
and there he went. Sorry, I should have mentioned that before.
Yeah,
And
because
then, of course,
the thing is,
I mean,
I don't know how much of a super soldier he is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
well, I
I
mean,
don't know if he can take on Thanos.
well, he can't, not really, because I mean, he's a super soldier. He just has enhanced speed and all those compared to, say, Wanda, Vision, Thor, Loki, Stark, Spider Man, Doctor Strange. I could go on, but
Right.
I think that'd be a little mean.
Everybody.
uh, uh, but anyways, the fight continues, and just uh, as the fight continues on, Sun and Wanda's once again down. Like Vision is once again nearly beaten. Suddenly, the Falcon, another dynamic appearance, again another cheer. And at the very last moment, of course, during this whole the fighting sequence goes on again, and then blonde-haired Black Widow comes out as well. So it's technically 5 against 2 because Vision can't do as much as he wants. But yeah, apparently the reason that they're there is because Bruce made his little phone call. That's why. But yeah, that whole scene with Falcon, uh, Falcon and everybody else talking, yeah, that was pretty much amazing. And again, they
So did the
managed
front
to kill.
shot, like when they all showed up, like a door opening or like
No,
some kind of
no, it's like
or
during. No, first it shows up with Steve Rogers stepping into the battle.
so he steps in.
In Yeah, like he steps in after the train passes by,
All right.
and then he jumps into the battle, and the battle continues on for 1 or 2 minutes, and there's a flight scene, and just when Vision is about to get himself in another thing, suddenly Falcon, and then it's Wanda and the other woman, and just at that exact moment, Black Widow appears, and then Black Widow ends up using one of the scepters to kill one of Thanos' children.
That's cool.
And then, yeah, and then the daughter of Thanos wears her revenge, and then they blast off in their donut ship.
Donut ship.
It will technically ring ship because it's like shaped like a ring, shaped like a donut, whichever. And then they're off. Of course, there's a little scene between Natasha uh, Natasha and both of them. So they talk about, you were supposed to lay low, keep in blah after the last 2 years, because they're still on the run after everything. Because it seems like, yeah, the others do know about of Wanda and the Vision being together, but yeah, that they were supposed to be nearby. So yeah, and then eventually, they after that scene, they're flying in the Quinjet, and they're gonna go look for some support, and then the scene switches to Rhodey. Rhodey and the council. And, the funny thing is, at first, I thought they were in the room with him, but then I take a closer peek, and it's the goddamn holograms again. Weird, like floating steam somewhere. I'm like, wait, why is that bit of steam floating? Oh my god. They're holographic. They're not even in the same compound that Rhodey is in. Big about they lost. Oh, you then the agreement, which yes, they're calling back to Civil War. He'd still be here in the first place, and then the general demand. It's like, oh yeah, but remember, you signed that too, and he's like, yes, I much says he regrets it, and then out of the shadows comes Natasha, Falcon, and Steve. There's the quick little back and forth about, yeah, this is not the time to fight. There's trouble, and I'm here to help even with or without your permission. Blah blah blah. And you'd think this is the perfect moment for the government or the U.S. military to say, all right, let's put our everything aside to fight.
Right.
And you know what happens?
No.
They tell Rhodey to immediately arrest them. And Rhodey says, "All right." And then he turns the count the them. I just court-martialed myself. And then he greets Steve, and they hug, and yeah, that is there and everything. Out of the corner, someone appears.
Ooh.
Who could it be talking with Rhodey in Tony's workshop after he's disappeared? Who could it be?
Just a
I
hammer.
wonder. Yes, Justin Hammer, who turns, and then Bruce comes out, and he just says, "Hi, Nat," and the most amusing thing is that uh, Falcon is there and right behind next to Rhodey and says, "Comfortable," because Nat is still smiling at him. She doesn't seem angry, but she just seems very happy to see him. But like Falcon looks uncomfortable because it's like he can feel the tension in the room. But yeah, and of course they start off with, Thanos is coming, like Bruce tells him Thanos is coming to Earth. He's, pretty much the same thing he told Tony, and that Tony ended up off world. He doesn't know where he is, and they have to protect the mind gem. Uh, I'm not sure, like, uh, and they have to protect the mind gem and everything, and they have to go find a way to do it. And that maybe, there's this whole thing on, well, maybe the best way to do it is via destroying the gem. But then there's this whole back and forth with, you can't do that. Vision is a person, and there's that Wanda asks Vision not to make her do it because she don't know if she can kill him. And then Bruce does come up with the fact that, uh, you know, Vision is not just the mind gem. He's the mind gem, Ultron, Jarvis, the whole of the internet put together. Maybe there is some way to make it possible that he still exists. But the thing is, like, they can do that, but he can't, and he doesn't know who can. And then Steve says that he has an idea. And of course, if I remember correctly, because like I know where all the scenes, the main problem is I don't know where all of them go. Not all of them go in the same direction because I will say this, it's
Do they change up like the
there are
timeline during the film, or?
well, it's like maybe a day or two passes, but not nothing too drastic.
Okay.
And they keep switching in between different things, and I think if you keep on one thing it's very linear, and then like if you concentrate on the space, on everything in space, it becomes very linear, and if you concentrate on everything that happens to on earth is very linear. But since they keep switching in between space, uh earth,
That's true.
space, earth, space, earth, space,
I don't know if
like
the physics are the same, but like, yeah, that would make time very hard to follow. Yeah.
like movie wise, once you see it, like the movie, it's like you have maybe like an hour for it to stay in, where each event goes.
Right.
But then like it's been like, I got out to see it at around 3. It's been nearly 12 hours afterwards.
Right.
And so yeah, like I can count like we should probably switch over to what's happening in space as well, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in space which
Oh, there's
is
more.
Thanos heavy. Yeah, there's more space stuff.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Yeah, because remember the Guardians are also in this movie,
Right.
and Tony, Strange, and Peter are in space, as is Thor. So I will say that after, you could say, I don't hear the one of the things is like Thor survives somehow,
Okay.
survives the explosion of his spaceship. I'll put that out there. How? I don't fucking know. I'll just I'll just chalk it up to him being a Norse god or whatever that they did in Ragnarok. And so the Guardians, like when the Guardians first show up, there's this really rock. I don't remember what song it is, but it starts off with Peter singing it along, and then he tells it, no, it's something else. I don't remember at the moment. I usually can. I feel bad that I can't. But Peter's singing along. He tells yeah, he tells Drax to take it, but Drax is like asleep. And but then you zoom, like you see Gamora, and she's singing along to it, even though he Peter didn't tell her to sing along to it. And then Rocket is just piloting, and then he speaks up, why are we going towards this distress signal? And it's just like, because we're the Guardians, that's what we do. We help people. And, then there's this whole back and forth. It's like, oh, we're doing it for money. It's just because, Rocket doesn't care if they have, maybe they have money. And it's like, and if they don't have money, we can take the ship. And it's all light. It's all, happy, um, cheerful, upbeat with teenage Groot playing on a video
Teenage Groot.
game. Teenage Groot,
Wow, this is
like
interesting.
teenage, yeah, because he's like, and then he says like, I am Groot. It's like, oh, are you speaking to that? Like, why are you using those words, young man? And they all are like, oh, because I think he said like some sort of like maybe, I
Curse
don't
word.
know, fuck you, I don't, yeah,
Yeah.
curse, like maybe he like fuck you, I don't care. It's like blah. So it's very funny to imagine what he's saying because it just says, I am Groot. I am Groot. Like the inflections is just hilarious. But it starts all happy and upbeat, and they make it there, and then boom, what happened here? That's what their first question, because there are bodies
Right.
floating in space. It's the wreckage of Thor's ship.
Mm.
There are bodies floating in spaces, and they're like surprised to what's happening here. And then it turns a little bit funny because then Thor literally smacks into the space of the ship,
Mm.
and they start screaming, "Get it off! Get it off! Get the thing off!" Of it. Well, Rocket starts screaming, and they realize he's still alive, and so they bring him on board to the ship, and then comes a very funny sequence of Drax saying, "This man, no, this is not a man. This is a man." He's like, "This is the child of an angel and a pirate." There's this very long, very amusing sequence of Drax admiring Thor's muscles and all these sort of things. It's a very long scene. Of course, it's sort of broken up when Mantis says he's in so much pain, anger, blah blah blah. And then Mantis wakes him up, tries to attack him, but they manage to, calm him down. And so he tells them that the children of Thanos have murdered his people, and like half his people and his brother, blah blah blah. And it's just like, oh, like because Gamora is there. Oh, Gamora is of Thanos, and everybody's like, oh shit, oh shit. He
Right.
like Thor stands up, he walks over to her, and everybody's ready to fight. And he's like, he just put she just puts her his hand on her shoulder, says, I understand what that's like. Family, you can sometimes have family who kill each other, blah blah blah, and who are evil. It's like, and it's a pretty much long. It's like,
It's pretty
I
cool.
know
Yeah.
you have a murderous family. Yeah, it's like, I understand. I have a murderous family who tried,
And
to kill me, blah blah blah. You know, who turned good, blah blah blah. So
this is where
it's a
and
very weird.
Loki just died. I don't know when, but how much time
Yeah,
elapsed, but he just died. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm guessing it's like, but the way like it seems, it's less that Thor is ignoring the fact that Loki died. It's that he wants to keep going because he eventually Rocket and Groot, they talk about that he's gonna go uh, to Needleharm somewhere. I can't pronounce that name. Damn
Jotunheim?
the Norse names.
Okay,
No,
yeah.
it's Miller, or however it's pronounced.
Right.
It's a place where they might find uh, a weapon that kills Thanos,
Right.
and that they have to go nowhere.
Okay.
Well, there a place called nowhere,
Okay.
uh, because and Thor tells him that he already has uh, 3 of the 6 stones.
Hmm.
So yeah, he's still missing the other 3. And of course, at that moment, you see the fear in Gamora's eyes.
Hmm.
And then, there's a whole sequence that Thor is going to go to whatever his place, and he confuses Rocket for being the captain.
Who?
And Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah, but who mistakes him for being the captain? Thor?
Thor.
Okay, just make sure. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And Thor keeps calling him Rabbit.
Does he take
And
out
you
like a
know
really
what's the
big
fun?
gun for it, or?
No, that's the funniest thing.
Oh.
Rocket doesn't Rocket doesn't correct him.
Huh.
He just keeps calling him Rabbit, but then again, he Thor he wants to go with Thor, and I don't think he gives a fuck because they're going to a mystic place where they
Right.
make amazing weapons, amazing galaxy destroying weapons.
Okay.
Do you really think Rocket's gonna protest if he's gonna go somewhere with
Exactly.
someone?
That's very funny. Yeah.
So he's very much like he doesn't give a fuck that Thor is calling him Rabbit. Which the most amusing thing is in the subs,
Right.
he's not. It's instead of rabbit, it's hare. It's
Yeah.
like the Spanish subs the say hare, but I'm like,
It's not
what?
the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but somehow that would have fit better for Thor to say thank you, hare, instead of rabbit.
Is this a cultural thing or is it just random?
I think it's just random. I think they decided to go with
Or it could be a mistranslation.
no. I think it's I also think they don't use the word conejo, which means I think it would give more. I think they use the term hare because
They
rat
don't. They don't
like
want to
conejo
accidentally. They don't exactly. They don't want to confuse people
because
like the words, right?
no, conejo means I think it gives more of a thought to bunny,
Right.
and Thor is not saying bunny. That's not the way he would say it. He's being more rabbit, so hare would
Okay.
be the same thing. So I think that's one of the few things that they're trying to make Thor sound like Thor, because if they use the word rabbit, it'll sound like he's trying to
And
use the word bunny instead of rabbit.
yeah, it works better that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds more majestic, I suppose.
Right. Oh yeah, that fits him. Yeah. Thor.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, so Thor does manage to convince them to, and he, Rocket, and Groot fly off to go get the 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 weapon. And but of course Peter wants to go to get shouldn't they all? And it says no, so you have to go to nowhere. And then Gamora agrees, yes, they have to go to nowhere.
Hmm.
And in the meantime, there's they move away, right?
Right.
And Gamora is looking out, and there's this scene where we see Gamora's backstory on how she became Thanos' daughter.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
Yeah.
Despite I think this is before the sequence while she's looking out into the
Space.
space, and like it's like there's this yeah, because this is afterwards. There, I think she asks this the continuing scene. So she asks. So the scene starts with like hearing the sound of destruction and a woman holding a small child close
Right.
to her.
Right.
And just about when she screams, her hand is her mouth is covered
Right.
by her mother.
Right.
And so what then happens is
You getting
that
ready?
no, I'm just moving around to see. I heard
Okay. Yeah.
um and so you see that a man enters into the building, and then there's the destruction. There's Thanos's children
Right.
destroying things, and Gamora separated from her parent, from her, I think her mother.
It's
She
sort of
starts
like
yelling.
the Black Widow thing in Age of Ultron, except like with younger people,
Yeah, with people, with adult and children.
opposed to like spy
And
stuff. Yeah.
yes, and so there's little Gamora. I mean,
Right.
there's little Gamora seeing it, and there's people everywhere screaming, and she's like, "Where's my mother? Where's my mother?" And then she bumps into Thanos. Of course, she doesn't seem to know it's him, and she's like, "Where's my mother?" And she starts to like, and Thanos is very, very gentle,
Okay.
at where she he says he's gonna go find her mother, and he like takes her like he takes her away and shows her a little small little knife which balances itself. Like you go, if you disbalance it too far to the left, it'll fall. But if you find, like, he shows off this little small little knife that looks he tiny in his hands, and he presses it, and two daggers come out at two ends. But it's very pretty, very. It's like with rubies and everything. It's very pretty, very tiny in his hands. But he shows tiny Gamora how balance is necessary.
Uh.
And he shows her how to balance the little knife, the little double edged knife.
Huh.
And
Balance
then
and
yes,
like it's
then
double edged.
yeah. But it sort of gets a little worse. You'll find out in a second.
Yeah.
So he kneels down, he gives it to Gamora, and says, "It go ahead." He's very sweet, very gentle. There's a gentle hand on her back,
Right.
and he gives the knife, double-edged knife, dagger, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
to her, and it's so big in her tiny little hands, but somehow with a little bit she manages to balance it on her finger. And he says, "Yes, very good." Then meanwhile, while all this is happening in the background, you see a whole line of people being lined up, and there's the sons of Thanos.
Right.
And then as it balances, all of Gamora's people are killed right behind her, but Thanos, and when she hears the shots, she tries to look around, but Thanos stops her from actually being able to do that.
Right.
So there she is. And that's then it goes back to her looking into space,
Right.
and she still has a knife
The same one.
with her, the same one that her
Okay.
father gave her.
Right.
And so Peter comes in, saying Thor isn't good looking, blah. You know what? The same thing
Did
that
they do
happened with
something?
Thor.
Did they do something with
It
Peter's dad and Gamora's dad?
they didn't. I mean, um, he did say like, oh yeah, my like Thor said, yeah, my dad was bad too. I'm half human. He tried to destroy me. Blah blah blah. Trying to suck up to Thor or maybe like make it seem more sadder. Blah blah blah.
But not with Star Lord.
Yeah, no, no, with Star Lord. But there's no actual, interaction about bad dads. But it's something that Peter inserted when everybody else was like when Thor was talking about his parents or evil, blah blah blah. He said, "Oh
Right.
yeah, my dad was a eating god and he tried to kill me." Blah. Of course, it's sort of
Okay.
brushed off to the side
Okay.
with the scene with Thor.
Right.
Anyways, there's this very touching scene between Gamora and Peter that she asks him if Thanos ever gets her to please kill her because she has a secret that would destroy the world.
Mm.
And she makes Peter promise on his mother's grave, mother's
Wow.
name.
Right.
Yeah, on his mother's name. And that's like, and you just, at that exact moment, you see the Thanos, the Peter, Quill is going to say yes, and then crunch. In the background, Drax is eating nuts. It, it's like, how long have you been standing there? An hour. It's like,
I feel
I,
that would work. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, I'm invisible. No, you're not. You're eating Zarg nuts. It's like, yes, but my movements are so slow. You can't see me. And he's like eating a nut slowly, eats a nut, crack. You can hear it,
Mm.
crack. And it's the most amusing thing is like, and then Mantis comes in and says like, uh, and says like, "Hi, Drax." Is like, ah, damn. And then he walks off,
I forgot
and
about
the
Mantis.
scene ends there.
Mm.
Yeah, and then it's like, and she comes in and says like, she sees Drax moving slowly, and she's like, "Hi, Drax." And it's like he realizes he's not invisible if Mantis can see him.
Right. So it's 3:58. You might have
Yeah,
to leave soon.
yeah. So
I feel like the movie sets up a lot of other movies very well.
yeah, it sets up like most of the big movies, like all the other movies. It does really well to incorporate one thing, like pretty much everything that they can.
I could see like a Gamora movie, Vision and Wanda movie. Trying to figure out what else.
Yeah, yeah. But I should mention here's a couple of things. There's a couple of things that happened that this is gonna get into really spoiler territory.
All right.
Okay, here are the list of people that actually die in the movie that is not part of Thanos's. Okay, Loki dies.
Right.
Gamora dies.
Okay.
Sacrificed. She is killed in order to get the Soul Stone.
Right.
And the worst. Oh, and okay, the thing I know somebody will say if I didn't say it. So during the moment they're going to get the Soul Stone,
Right.
there is a person there,
Right.
where the keeper of the Soul Stone, where
Right.
he is there. He's been there for centuries. He touched one stone, and now he's destined here to watch other people come and fail to get the treasure that he wanted. Blah blah
Right.
blah. And this is like, who are you? And he steps out into the light. Fucking Red Skull.
Hmm. So
Everybody. Sudden Red Skull.
yeah.
You
A
remember
son of the
that
Red
he
Skull.
suddenly. Yes. You know how he suddenly disappeared during the whole thing with the Tesseract? Remember that? We have no
Oh.
fucking idea. Remember, we have no fucking idea what happened to him?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Countless centuries on this little backwater planet, guarding the soul gem. never being able to touch it, but seeing other people try and fail.
He might have taught Thanos a thing or two.
Yeah, he did say, but it'll come at a great cost. He's seen everything, so he doesn't imply that he regrets what he did. He just regrets that he can't do it himself.
Did,
Anyways,
did anyone go?
but
There ain't gonna be no Guardians of the Galaxy 3 now.
yeah, because you know what happens? It's like
Yeah, you just told me.
Gamora, like yeah, Gamora dies, but to sacrifice. But in order to get the Soul Stone, Thanos has to give something that he loves in order to get it.
Okay.
And he actually did care about Gamora, his daughter.
Right.
So yes, you actually see him cry during this whole thing.
Right.
And Cap and just in case, Captain America and Iron Man don't interact at all because they're on two separate planets.
All
Two
right.
separate planets.
I was wondering about that. Yeah, you got my message, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's about it.
So yeah, Gamora died. Another death that is really hard because Wanda actually did what Vision asked
Right.
and destroyed the Mind Gem.
Okay.
Except by that time, he Thanos already had the Time Gem. So what does he do?
He reverses
He
time.
tell Exactly. Even though he tells Wanda not to worry, he understands what she's going through. Blah blah blah.
How does
He
the time?
winds back time.
How does the time
Yeah.
gem
How does
work?
this?
Can he just go all the way
Well,
back in time and get all of them by himself anyway?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Honestly, I they never covered that. That's one of the things.
Okay, that's interesting. So this is
Yeah.
very
Anyways,
interesting. Like, it seems like the whole MCU movie universe is screwed up because like everybody died.
no, and I'm not kidding. A lot of people die in this movie.
So like,
Like,
how they
oh,
gonna have like sequels now?
well, here's the thing. Also, then yeah, Vision is gone because he takes the
Right, the
mind gem
mind gem.
out,
Right, right. Well, wait,
and then
wait. When they
he
reverse
completely.
time, if they reverse time, isn't he back together then, or they have to still kill him to get the mind gem?
Yeah, he's back together,
Right.
but the mind gem was exploded. It
Okay.
so the
They just reverse the
so
explosion then.
they reverse the explosion, and then he literally takes the stone out of Vision's head, and
Okay.
then he dies
Okay.
again. So yeah, Vision dies twice.
Well, that's overkill, isn't it?
Yeah, poor Vision.
Yeah.
And you know what the worst part is?
No.
Thanos does get all the Infinity Gems, all of them.
All right. That's the ending of the movie.
Yeah. Well, Thor did manage to get a weapon
Right.
that that this that helps to kill Thanos
Right.
via the star with Rocket. He does that, and then the most amusing thing is like the giant is Peter Dinklage.
I just
You know,
randomly looked at Wikipedia. Yeah.
I didn't know Peter Dinklage was in this.
I just randomly looked up it up. I didn't ask. I don't think we have enough time to talk about Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, like I when I come back, maybe you can do some more. But
Yeah, definitely.
long story, yeah. Okay, so long story short,
Yeah.
uh, to get more into the analysis and the minor things on each of the Avengers. So
Right.
Thanos gets the the gems
Right.
into the gloves,
Right.
and then at that exact moment, Thor attacks him with the new hammer
Right.
that should destroy Thanos, and then there's suddenly this huge explosion, and the gauntlet is badly burned and stuff.
Hmm.
And then he just looks at it, and then he closes his hand and he fades away.
Yeah.
And then after this big battle with a lot of the Avengers, people start disintegrating.
Wow.
Here are the people that disintegrate:
Right.
Bucky,
Wow.
Wanda,
Hmm.
Black Panther,
Hmm.
Spider-Man, Doctor Stephen Strange, whose last on
You cut out.
Drax. Yeah. What?
But
I
yeah,
cut off.
before Drax, who was it? I forgot. After Spider-Man, before Drax,
Strange, and his
Strange.
words to Tony
Okay.
were, "Now it's Endgame."
Oh,
What the? Yeah, what the fuck that means? I don't know.
I don't know.
Not yet.
Right.
Uh,
That'd be a pretty good
man.
title for the next Avengers movie. Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, yeah. Like after Drax, Drax and Mantis disappear.
Right.
Peter disappears.
Right.
I think I mentioned Black Panther.
You mentioned them,
Uh,
right?
Falcon disappears.
Oh, you did mention Falcon.
Who else? Groot disappears.
Wow.
Yeah. Rocket doesn't.
Hmm.
And let's see. Iron, Black Widow, yes. Rhodey is still there. And yeah, that's all. Like all who the people who are left who haven't disintegrated are Steve, Tony, Black Widow, Bruce, um, Natasha, Rocket, Thor, and I think that's pretty much it.
So they're severely
Uh,
undermanned, and it sort of feels like a House of M situation.
yeah, and you know what's worse? And here's I'm also spoiling the
Right.
end credits.
I heard about that in Kurds, yeah.
Yeah. So at the end credits, after everything and even the movie ends on a dark note with just Thanos just sitting outwards, sad, but sadly happy. You see tons of people disappearing in New York, things falling. Maria Hill and Director Fury. First thing she says, like, Hill, go inform somebody, and he's like Nick, and then you see her slowly disappear, and then he runs, gets something from the back of the car,
Right.
and he suddenly realizes what's happening. He's disintegrating, and as he's slowly disintegrating, he manages to press the button, and then just disappears. And as the little calm falls onto the pavement, there's three little dots. It stays there for two or 3 seconds, sending, and then the little insignia of Captain Marvel appears,
Oh.
and and people went wild,
Oh.
wild at that,
Okay.
because after this complete shit show, we still have Captain Marvel,
Oh, okay. I thought the
which comes.
I thought the cameo in the end was that there was no cameo, but that's interesting too.
Yeah,
I
it's
thought the cameo
technically
was
not a
like there's
cameo.
nobody left. Everybody else died already.
No, but the thing is, they left on such a downer ending. They had to have at least something a little better. Tony is still alive,
Right.
but here's something that Doctor Strange said,
Right.
that yes, he's seen 14 million and something and some really big number of realities where they battled Thanos,
Right.
and of those, how many did they win? One.
Right.
So yeah, so it's Endgame now.
Or they could call it Avengers Infinity War, opposed to Infinity
Yeah,
War, because it'd be the one left,
yeah.
because all the other worlds are destroyed.
Mhm. Yeah. So yeah, because I think there's a reason why it's called Infinity War.
Right.
Because remember, infinite realities. Dr. Scene has seen infinite realities, and it's a war.
Right.
I mean, they lost this battle,
Right.
but the war's not over.
Right.
But
Oh,
that's where,
yeah, that's interesting too. Maybe they lose this one and they restart in another universe or something.
yeah, or maybe, like, again, it's remember, sometimes you lose the battle, but not the war. And this is just part one.
Right.
But Jesus Christ, it started off heavy and ended heavy. This is probably, I wouldn't say the darkest, but it's a pretty goddamn sad Avenger movie compared to everything else. But then again, we're getting other little movies. We're getting Ant Man. We're getting Marvel.
Right.
In we're getting remember we're also getting 13 other Marvel movies still.
Did
We don't know what else.
did Avengers of Shield get canceled? I mean, Agents of Shield get canceled.
Uh, what?
Did Agents of Shield get canceled?
I have no idea. I stopped watching after season five,
All
four,
right.
somewhere along those lines.
All right.
But yeah, that was yeah,
Uh, cool.
yeah. So I can probably like when I get back from my thing talk more about the actual breakdowns of particular things about the stuff like because I'm one of those people that even after everything I started analyzing motivations, backgrounds.
Sure.
I blame this on being a literature student.
Cool.
Yeah, so for now that's all I have to say. And Avengers Infinity War was really good. My mother, who is not a big fan, loved it
Right.
despite its being downer, but it just left you on such a cliffhanger that you want to know more. But yeah, it's a despite all everything that happened
Right.
and being such a downer movie, it's one of those movies you really have to go see. And yeah, spoiler warning, I'm just telling this on here, but I'm not going to go out of my way to tell people because they should probably go see it. It's worth it. It
Okay.
really is worth
Should I
to go
stop the
see.
stream now or?